Christ has no body now on earth but yours. Have you heard that prayer before? Christ has no body now on earth but yours. Churches have prayed some version of these words in the name of a woman named Teresa for a long time now, and her life basically was all about this, long before any of us tried to put any of our actions and things into words. She entered into a Carmelite, meaning in Spain, covenant in Avila, in her 20s, already restless, and for 2 decades that restlessness looked like nothing much to anyone watching from outside. She was a woman keeping the hours, tending a garden, writing letters to nobody outside her own order. No one who would actually read those letters. She just kept writing and writing and writing. And then, past the age of 40, she started walking out the front gate. She rode from town to town in the back of a covered cart on roads bad enough to break a wheel, and founded covenant after covenant, stripped down to almost nothing. Bare walls, basically silence, doing all sorts of unglamorous work herself. She was negotiating with landlords, she was begging money from reluctant patrons, she was defending whole projects with bishops who basically didn't think that women had any business being in that sort of business. Now, whatever hours were laid and left at the end of those days that she led, begging for money and negotiating with landlords and dealing with bishops who didn't believe she had any business doing what she's doing, she wrote a book called The Interior Castle, The Way of Perfection. And this was some of the most exact mapping. Remember, we did mapping a couple of weeks ago. Some of the most exact mapping of the interior life that Christianity has ever produced. And it was written by a woman. And in fact, it was written in a way that, to anyone who was watching, it wouldn't have made a lot of sense to them. She didn't make a lot of sense to people. The things that she was doing didn't make a lot of sense to people. Now, plenty of people knew Teresa's name. She was argued over, written to, watched closely enough that her own account of her life ended up in the hands of the Inquisition. Anybody unfamiliar with the Inquisition? That's all right. What was greatest in her, though, stayed invisible to all of them because it happened in prayer. And it happened alone, where no one could see it. Basically, whatever greatness was actually hers, she never spent it trying to be seen having it. Whatever greatness was actually hers, she never spent it trying to be seen as having it. That said, turn in your Bibles to John 13. John 13, we're going to have it up on the screen in a second. And I just want to give you some context to it because it's the night before Jesus dies. Everybody got that picture in your head? It's the night before Jesus dies. It's the Last Supper, and it's the Last Supper that he's going to eat with the 12 before basically Rome and the Sanhedrin between them take his body apart. And everything that happens right here at this dinner is happening in that shadow. He knows what is about to happen in his life, and yet he is about to have dinner. Now, John, who's writing this, is telling us that even though all of the things to come with Jesus will come, there's this slowed down moment that's happening with Jesus and the disciples. Everybody there, John 13? Mm-hmm. All right, let's read it together. Now, before the feast of Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Well, I just want to stop right there. Have you ever stopped at that sentence? He loved them to the end. Have you just pondered just that? I would, if you have a paper Bible or digital, just underline that just so that this week you can come back to it. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Let's continue. During supper, when the devil, everybody together, during supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "The one who has bathed does not need to wash, except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you." For he knew who was to betray him. That was why he said, "Not all of you are clean." When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
When's the last time you read that whole passage? Said a lot. That's right. And it's time to take off your shoes because I'm just like. Listen. I scrubbed them before I came. Just saying. I didn't know how
Nobody wants to.
Listen.
Okay.
Also, if you go back, I had this moment also, like, and Peter's like, "You're not going to wash my feet." Jesus like, "Well, I have to wash your feet if you're going to blah, blah." And so Peter's like, at that point, wash everything. Wash everything in me. I was like, that's great. Now, I want you to picture the room. There's no chairs in this room, okay? They're at dinner. There's no chairs. The men are basically reclining on cushions around a low table, propped on the left arm with the right hand free for the bread, feet stretched out behind them away from the food. You got that picture? This was a world where air conditioning had not been invented, roads were not paved with concrete or asphalt, and shoes were not closed-toed, which meant the feet reclining at that table were the smelly, dirty, grimy feet of men who walked everywhere they went on roads covered in dust and poop, animal waste. You got that picture? Yeah. Someone was supposed to, the culture of the day, someone was supposed to wash them before anyone actually reclined to eat. So meaning before they sat down, someone was supposed to wash their feet. Foot washing was, according to the Jewish law, was the lowest labor in that culture. So low that Jewish law would not require it even of a Jewish slave. Only a Gentile one, someone entirely outside of the Jewish family, was to wash a person's feet. It was that low of an action. And on this particular night, the job had gone undone. And here's why. The 12, if you're familiar with scripture, had spent the walk over to this scene arguing about which one of them was the greatest. You remember that in scripture? And not one of them was going to lose that argument by picking up a basin. So the whole time that they're walking to this dinner, they're going back and forth about, okay, well, who is going to be the greatest amongst them? And if, again, picture it, if someone were in that argument, if someone were to step away from that argument and pick up a basin, then that would mean that they're doing the lowest job and would be counter to them arguing about who's going to be the greatest one amongst them. Mm-hmm. Got that picture? Mm-hmm. John, who's writing to us, reminds us who Jesus is and that his hour has come, and then gives us 4 actions that Jesus took. He rose, he laid aside his robe, he tied a towel around his waist, and he knelt. He rose, he laid aside his robe, he tied a towel around his waist, and he knelt. R. Kent Hughes said it like this: He lays aside his garments just as he had temporarily set aside his glorious existence. He takes a towel just as he took upon himself the form of a servant. He washes his disciples' feet just as he cleanses his children. All put together, the highest in the room made himself the lowest. Now, Peter, just harking back to the scripture, Peter can't let it happen, at least not yet. Remember, he said, "You shall never wash my feet." We love a Peter. We love him. Jesus tells him that the washing was never really about clean feet, right? In fact, by washing the feet of his disciples, Jesus has given an enacted preview of what he will do for his people when he makes them clean through his death on the cross. Jesus, the greatest, will do for the world what it does not deserve. If anyone does not receive the cleansing Jesus provides, he has no part with Jesus. And just pay attention here. If anyone does not receive the cleansing Jesus provides, he has no part with Jesus. And then, having done it, Jesus tells them very, very clearly what he has just given to them. I have given you an example that you should do this also. You should do it just as I have done to you. He gave it to them at the table in the middle of this most familiar company, the 12 he had already shared 1,000 meals with. And think about it. The Lamb of God, maker of wine from water, healer of the lame, feeder of the sick, walker on water, source of living water, light of the world, giver of sight to the blind, good shepherd, raiser of the dead, rider of a donkey, is also a foot washer. Remember what a foot washer is, and according to the law says not even a Jewish slave, meaning a Jewish slave has more status than the person who was allowed to do feet washing. And Jesus, who is all the things that I just said, becomes a foot washer, the lowest of low. So, right. Now look one more time. This is where, like, in my study, it was sort of like, it blew me away. It's not the crux of what I'm talking about tonight, but I'm sure all of you have already come to this conclusion. Look one more time at whose feet were in the water. John, actually, again, the writer, has already told us the devil had put it into Judas's heart to hand him over, and that Jesus knew exactly who it was who would betray him. And even then, he knelt in front of that man anyway and washed his feet like everybody else's. Nothing was coming back from it. No gratitude, no change of heart, no credit later from a man who would be out the door before morning with money for betraying Jesus. And yet, Jesus washed the feet of the one person in that room guaranteed never to thank him. If you want to know how far down hiddenness goes, it goes that far. That argument on the walk over was not really about a towel, though. You get it. Jesus had spent 3 years teaching these men that his kingdom runs backward from every kingdom they had ever seen. And they were still angling, still arguing right up until the basin sat there unused for a seat near the top. And we can look back through the scriptures and look back in hindsight and say, they are so silly. But we are not so different. Most of us do not want credit for nothing. We want it for something real, a genuine kindness, an actual sacrifice. The desire to be seen doing good rarely announces itself as vanity. In fact, it shows up dressed as gratitude, as encouragement, as simply telling the truth about what happened. We're angling for the spotlight too. Now, because he knows this, Jesus names this temptation that we're going to be talking about tonight. He says this in Matthew 6, verse 2. So when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. Now, so that you know, the temple's offering, the chest in which people gave their offering in, was shaped like a ram's horn, if you can imagine that. It's narrow at the mouth and wide at the base, and everyone paid something. Everyone paid with a coin. A person basically could set a gift down without a sound. Like you could just set it right in the horn, and it wouldn't make a sound. Or tip the hand back and let it ring the whole way to the bottom, meaning if you angle it just in such a way and you were to put a coin in it, it would literally make a sound, right? Now, we have quieter horns now. We found ways to let people hear their coins drop without anyone actually hearing anything, weaving the good we have done into a conversation until somebody else supplies the praise we were too polite to ask for outright. Here's what I mean by that. Sometimes we do some things that's so good, and we're just waiting on the right conversation. And then the right conversation comes up, and you're like, oh yeah, I was the one who signed off on that project. Yeah, it was great, and you just slip that in because you're angling for the praise. You're angling to be seen. In the same way, 2,000 years ago, that's what they were doing. It was, everyone's going to give a coin, but I want you to see that I gave a coin. I want you to see that I gave like 3 coins. So I'm going to turn the ram's horn just a little bit, and I'm going to drop my coin in there. I'm going to shake it just a little bit so it makes some sound, so you know that I gave. Because that's what we do, right? We give at the temple. So somebody's already thinking about this in this room right now. I know you are. Because a chapter earlier in that same sermon, Jesus said what sounds like the opposite of what we were just talking about. He says this, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. That sounds like the exact opposite, though, of what he was saying in chapter 6, verse 2. Right? Remember, 6 verse 2 says, so when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you. But in previous chapter, he says, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Is that a what's the word? Contradiction? Yeah.
No.
Tell me.
Light doesn't make any noise.
That's what she said.
Okay. Okay. And you just don't drop us right there.
Right, right.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. Anyone else want to take a stab at it, or we're cool with that? All right. Yeah, all right, light doesn't make a sound. Come on, somebody. We're recording it. Okay. The truth is, both are his words. And what separates them is where the seeing ends up. Do they see you or do they see the Father? What a public work has to keep answering is whose name people walk away saying. So the thing that you're doing, do people walk away praising your name or God's? That habit that we all struggle with, because we want to be seen. Can we just be honest in the room? Is it just me? No. It is just me, okay. No. We want to be seen, like we're doing all the things. We want to, like, somebody, give me. Moms, hello? Come on, right? Wait.
Dads.
Dad. Wow, okay. I was trying to give you a little. But that habit does not break because we notice it. It doesn't break because we're in this room talking about the fact that, hey, we notice that we do some of these things. Wanting to be seen is not a switch anyone can decide to flip off. And if willpower were strong enough to do it, most of us would have already been finished with this problem. But Paul has a word for what actually does the work. And we use it all the time. And that word is, anybody? Formed. Right, formed. Yep, or formation. In fact, in Galatians chapter 4, verse 19, he says this, quote, "My little children, for whom I am again in anguish of childbirth until Christ is formed in you." Formed, actually, and we talk about this all the time, is a slow word. A shape that takes years to set, built the same way any shape really gets built in life, by what we keep doing again and again and again and again and again. It's all in our habits. And we do that, we work on it, we practice it until it becomes who we are instead of just something that we've tried. And service is like every other practice that we've talked about here at Uncommon City. You deepen it only by doing it. Right? Our friend Tyler Staton puts it like this. He says, nobody tells a person who wants to learn to pray to memorize the Psalms first and try to sound like David. You actually say, just start talking to God and be honest with him, and then you grow from there. Service grows the same. One basin, one towel, one act at a time. But service is unlike every other practice in one respect as well. Jesus attaches one particular instruction to it. And it's an instruction he doesn't give away anywhere else. He actually says to keep it out of sight. Everyone say, keep it out of sight.
Keep it out of sight.
The closest parallel is prayer, where he tells a crowd to shut the door behind them, and even that was aimed at the show-offs of his own day rather than laid down for every prayer anyone prays, meaning. Service, he says, keep it out of sight. It's closely related to prayer in the sense of, he says, close the door behind you when you go to pray. And both of them are being aimed at people who are wanting to show off what it is that they're doing. Now with service, staying out of sight is not there to fix one habit so that it covers everyone, but it's this idea from Matthew 6:3. Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. So is there a practice in the life of Jesus then that keeps our service from turning into the very performance the 12 were auditioning for on the road to that table? Yes, and it's called Hiddenness. Hiddenness is the second of our 4 movements that our practice service is sort of running through. Last week we talked about love, we're talking about hiddenness tonight. Next week we're talking about availability, and then we're going to end at kinship. You guys remember where we were in those 4 corners? Hiddenness is a secret choice made over and over to do the good thing in a way nobody can trace back to you. Paying for the coffee of the car behind you and turning out of the lot before anyone can be thanked. Slipping an extra bill into, if you go to one of those old school churches, slipping an extra bill into the plate face down. Mowing the yard for the widow 2 houses over on a week nobody asked for. It's not the same as staying silent about your faith, which can just as easily be its own way of hiding, one that serves nobody. And it's not the quiet satisfaction of being the one person at the table who never needed thanking. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, there are those of us who, we relish in doing some things and knowing that we did it, and we sit at the table and let everybody just talk about it, right? But we never get mentioned, but we love it because we know that we did that, and we're actually getting praised without them knowing they are praising us. That does happen. Most of the serving that you will ever do cannot actually be hidden, if we're being honest. Somebody has to stack chairs or move chairs after the gathering. And the last few people in the room can see who stayed to move the chairs. Somebody has to pick up the neighbor who has no car, and she's sitting in your front seat the whole way there, so she sees you driving the car. You cannot carry a plate of food to a grieving family and keep your face out of the doorway. You cannot sit in a hospital room anonymously. None of that is disqualifying. That's serving. It's just not hidden. Now, hiddenness has less to do with who can see you than with serving so fully that you forget yourself for the length of the act. And that's actually really, really difficult, because the self keeps finding new doors back in. The itch to post what you did, a good feeling turned over so many times, it turns into this glob congratulation. A flashlight that's kept on your own motives the entire time, checking whether you are doing this for the right reasons, which is its own way of never actually arriving. We keep doing the thing, and we keep moving into these places where we're saying, okay, we want to do it, and we're doing it for others, but we're doing it for the camera. We're doing it for the picture. We're doing it for the likes. We're doing it for the TikToks. I call it ticketing talks. Now, the truth is, I'm not saying this to shame anybody. Jesus does not ask us to arrive to this already pure. He asks us to keep showing up and let the practice do to us what we cannot do to ourselves by trying harder. So when we're in those moments where we're serving or we're in front of a crowd or talking to people, what if we could pray something like this when we are doing public-facing works? God, here's the truth. My motives are not entirely pure. My ego is very alive right now, and my thoughts are frequently turning inward. What if we got to a place where we can recognize that there is a portion of us that may show up to serving, and we're doing it a little bit on the ego side. And we can say to God, hey God, I recognize that there's a little part of me that's playing out in this. Would you give me a couple of minutes tonight where I can forget myself? And I want to be really clear about serving. We can actually feel good about serving. Hiddenness does not have to hurt to count, right? And feeling something good because you basically lost yourself in loving somebody else is not proof at all that you did it wrong. In fact, our friend Jonathan Tremaine Thomas, if you know him, Pastor JT, he's a pastor. He did a lot of work at Ferguson in 2020, 2021, who is a friend of Uncommon City. was on this episode of a podcast talking exactly about this, and he called Jesus basically a humble king. Everybody recognizes that Jesus is a humble king, yeah? He says Jesus is one who knows that we are made for worship but never made to receive it. But we crave it anyway. He puts it like this: the truth of the kingdom of light is that everything hidden will be exposed, he said. But in the kingdom of darkness, Satan is very much a performer, an exploiter. We agree with this? Sit with the first half of that, though. If everything hidden is going to come into the light eventually, then nothing you keep quiet is lost, only held for you by somebody who can be trusted with timing. If everything hidden is going to come into the light eventually, then nothing you keep quiet is lost. It's only being held for you by somebody who can be trusted with the timing. And a performer cannot wait that long. A performer has to do his own revealing, and he has to do it right now while there are still people in the room to see it. He needs the applause. Which turns the question from whether anyone will ever know into who do you trust to hold it until they do know? Because again, in this practice, we can say, I want to do the thing right now, and I want to do it because all eyes are here, and people can applaud, and people can thank me and all the things, because I need that gratification. And Jesus is not saying that it's wrong to have that feeling. He's saying, who satiates that feeling that you have? Do you want the applause of man, or that of King Jesus himself? Some of what God asks of us is never meant to leave the room where it happens. That was for Josiah, but he'll get it later. In the room where it happens. And some of y'all will get that later too. Did not land the way I thought it was going to land. Hamilton. Okay, great.
I did not get that. Never seen it.
FYI, I'm always weaving lyrics and things into these. Some of what God asks of us is never meant to leave the room where it happens. Here's what I mean by that. There are rhythms he has called me into that nobody else needs to know about. And not because they are shameful, but because they belong to nobody but the two of us. It doesn't need to be preached. It doesn't need to be written down. It doesn't need to be turned into a post. And sometimes what belongs only to the two of us is service itself. Some particular way of showing up for another person that nobody else will ever know about, because there is no reason that they should know about it. And this is part of why I love that we're called Christ's hands and feet in the first place. When you serve somebody hidden, truly hidden, the only explanation left standing in their mind is that God must have done it. And they are not wrong. It was God who did it. It just happened to run through a pair of hands and feet that belong to you. What's between you and God is just between you and God. It has to be. Now, there is a reward on the other side of all of this. Most of what we call reward is counterfeit. Yeah, we get that, right? The applause. It's fast food eaten on the way to a table that's already set for you, leaving you too full for the meal you were actually promised. The end goal, just to remind you, of every spiritual practice, hiddenness included, is joy. That's the end goal. And Jesus says as much the night of this very meal, a few chapters later. On the same evening, he ties the towel around his waist, and he says, quote, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. And joy is not pleasure. Pleasure is a dinner planned down to the last course, built to your own specification. But joy happens upon you. It's like a deer stepping out of a tree. Anybody from the South? It's like a deer stepping out of the tree line while you were on a walk you did not take in order to see it. Meaning you did not go on this walk to go see deer, but baby, in the South, in Georgia specifically, they gonna come out.
Ran from the car.
Sometimes it's terrifying.
It's very terrifying if you're driving on the highway,
Yeah.
okay? But we're talking about beauty. We're talking about beauty. Right. You can't go hunting for it. You can only be out walking unguarded when this deer steps in front of you. And the same goes for like those of you who go to the beach a lot. The same goes for a sunset. You can't do anything for that. You just sort of have to be there for it, right? Or your own children playing in the last light of an evening. Any moment that catches you off guard and for a second, it empties you of yourself. You look at that sunset, or you look at your children, or you look at that dolphin in Vinoy, and you just sort of lose yourself to that beauty. That emptying of yourself is the joy that I'm talking about. It's where you are free for as long as it lasts from the prison of thinking about yourself. And hiddenness is nothing more than a way of practicing that freedom on purpose, in secret, until it starts finding you everywhere else too. It is the doing of service without anybody knowing it, and just giving yourself away to that project or that person or that particular thing, and just being okay with the Lord working in and through you and finding joy in it. Amen. I felt that pull myself more than once. A few years ago, I sensed a call to plant a church as clearly as I've ever heard anything or sensed anything. And one thing kept catching in me every time I looked at what church planting was becoming. And it started to feel like a brand strategy. Sorry, marketers. A name and a face and all the communication people. A name and a face and a following built ahead of the first service. It was this the calling that's like repackaged into content, and I didn't want that. And I didn't want it badly enough that I nearly almost didn't plant a church. I nearly almost didn't want to do it. And then I started to inquire of the Lord. I started to pray to God and just ask Him, like, okay, how am I going to do this? And the Lord responded to me, and He said 2 words. He said, do it in obscurity. Do it in obscurity. And I've carried those 2 words for years now, and they keep asking more of me. I took them at first as instructions about Uncommon City, and it took me a while to understand that God was actually talking about me, not necessarily Uncommon City. In obscurity means there are parts of this calling that I have, parts of my servanthood, that only He will ever know about. What it costs, what it's taking out of me and my family, the nights nobody else was awake for, the times I wanted to quit and never told a soul in this room. The truth is, a man who needs to be seen will do almost anything to stay seen. And I think God loves me too much to let me become that person. And what He's wanted the whole time is a man who would still be His with the lights off, with no microphone, with no platform, with nothing. And I felt that so deeply that I had it tattooed on my arm. It's this tattoo here. Don't worry about this. I was 18. A girl broke up with me, and she never wanted me to have a tattoo, and then I got a tattoo. So that's the one that I wanted to take away. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. This one? That's not part of the sermon. It's as close as we can get to blessed are the meek.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as close. And I had it confirmed and everything, it's fine. But I'm going to get it removed once I get rich. I don't know. But that's the tattoo. In obscurity. No, you're fine. I had a tattoo not for you, and not for anyone else, and not because I thought it would look cool, But I had it tattooed so that on the days that I feel that old pull toward the stage, toward being known, toward building a name that gets remembered, I will look down. And sometimes you will see me do something like this because I'm looking at it. So that I can remember that being on stage or giving this talk or whatever was never the assignment. And then I have this one dream. If the church ever gets, the big church, if the church ever gets around to giving people like me a saint's name once we're gone, the one I would want is Miko the Obscure. I want that to be my story. There's this great line, I don't know if anybody knows it, I can't remember it right now, but the goal is to preach the gospel and die and be forgotten. That's what I want. So, I know that sounds crazy coming from me because I'm the one who's teaching you right now, so I literally have the microphone or I have the stage, but I'm also saying like, no, do this in obscurity. I get it. But before I ask you to pick up a basin, I want you to look one more time at who is already holding one, Jesus. That floor, that towel, the water going gray, a man with everything in his hands on his knees in front of the one person there who already betrayed him. Nobody understood it yet, and one of them would never understand, and he washed the feet anyway. So your practice this week is one hidden act of service, something nobody will applaud, and if you can manage it, something nobody will even know about but you and the person you did it for, and God. So do the dishes that are not yours to do, and let whoever finds the clean sink wonder. Pick something that costs you an hour you didn't have, or money you already had a plan for, or patience with a person who cannot pay you back in any currency. And let that be the secret that you have with God. The good kind of secret. And I'll only add this, let it be something you could actually keep doing. Don't do something that is this grand gesture, and then you try to convince yourself that it's this lifestyle that you're living. It's not going to be. It's too much energy. So do small, repeatable things that are just between you and the Lord this week. And when the urge rises to tell somebody, because it will, let that urge become a prayer. And just tell the Lord. And I'll close with this. I had this moment this past week because our practice was to serve, do one thing. And I already had told a neighbor that I would cut their grass, or what do you call it? Weed, whack, whatever.
Weed.
Sure. I would do that to her grass. And no, but I did it. So I went and did it this week. I was supposed to do it the week before, but I went and did it this week. And they weren't home, but I went and I did it, blah, blah, blah. And I got a text like 2 days later, hey, did you stop by and do our grass? And it took everything in me not to respond. Because I wanted to say yes, because I told them that I would, and I wanted to make sure they knew I did it, not because I wanted the applause, but I didn't want them to think somebody else did it and I forgot to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like I went through all that in my head. And if I'm being really honest with you, I wanted them to know that I did it without knocking on their door, without needing them to be home, that I just stopped by and I did it. And I struggled with it. And this is my confession. Nope, not whole.
I knew that one.
But this is my confession. And I'm telling you that confession because it creeps up easily. I was just doing grass, and 3 days later, like literally, I could have just ignored it. But I got in my head, and then ego came out. And I literally sent a smiley face. That's all I sent. Which you'd be like, no, it's fine, calm down. But I wanted it to be hidden. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. Somebody's hands and eyes and feet still have to be Christ in this city. In rooms nobody else will ever walk into, and every week that gets built again out of nothing more impressive than ordinary people like you and I, who are willing to disappear a little bit on somebody else's behalf. Will you be willing to disappear on someone else's behalf? If so, would you close your eyes? And I'm going to pray this blessing over you. Christ has no body but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks with compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. So may you, like Christ, go now not to be served, but to serve.